All right, welcome back. Excuse me. We are on Unit 6 of our ACT Prep, Plane Geometry. We're on day 2, which is going to be talking all about angles. All right, angles consist of two rays with a common endpoint. Right here is their common endpoint. This is ray AB, and this is ray BC, and they have a common endpoint. That common endpoint is called the vertex of that angle. An angle can be described using 3 points or simply by naming the vertex. The angle above can be named angle ABC or simply angle B. You could also call it angle CBA. Okay, as long as you put the vertex in the middle, it doesn't matter which ray you name first. The shorthand for the measure of angle B is they put the little m for measure. That says they're giving you the measure. This symbol represents an angle, and they're saying the measure of angle B is 45 degrees. So they're telling you this is 45 degrees. Okay, classifying angles. Acute angles measure between 0 and 90. Okay? Oh, look, it's so little and cute. Just like a little puppy. Okay, so cute, just think little. Little puppies are cute. Alright, so if it's between 0 and 90, it's little, we call them acute measures. Right angles are exactly 90 degrees. You know that from being perpendicular. And obtuse means it's between 90 and 180. Okay, obtuse, I don't really have, the acute, just remember, if you remember the acute means the small one, then you just remember obtuse means the bigger one. Okay, if acute is small, then obtuse is big. Okay, acute smaller than 90, obtuse bigger than 90. If it's exactly 180 degrees, that's a straight line. Okay, and though that would be an angle of 180 degrees. Reflex angles is when you go past 180 degrees. It's between 180 and 360. So if you kind of look in a circle, from here to here is 90, from here to here is another 90, that's your 180. Everything down here is over 180 degrees. This would be 180 plus 90, which would be all the way to 270, and from here to here would get you all the way back around to 360. You're just counting by 90s all the way around. So anything over 180 between any angle down here, like you'd start with, let me draw for you. If this was my beginning ray, anything over here would be reflex. Okay, this angle would be reflex. This angle from here all the way around would be a reflex angle. So anything more than 180 and less than 360 is called a reflex angle. Okay, complementary and supplementary angles. Complementary angles have a total measure of 90 degrees. So that if I added angle ACB, which would be from here to here, and I added from angle BCD, that would be from here to here, altogether that would equal 90 degrees, which makes angle ACB and angle BCD complementary angles. Supplementary angles have a total measure of 180 when you add them. So if I take angle ACB, which would be from here to here, and I add it to angle BCD, that would be from here to here, they add up to 180 degrees. Congruent angles are angles that have the exact same angle measure. So when anything is equal, we can also use this fancy word called congruent. Okay? If angle ABC and angle DEF are congruent, then the measure of angle ABC has to equal the measure of angle DEF. Right angles measure 90 degrees, therefore all right angles are considered congruent, obviously. All right, adjacent, vertical, corresponding, interior, and exterior angles. All right, so adjacent angles touch on a common side. So your adjacent angles are 1 and 2 because they're adjacent to each other. But I also have adjacent angles. 1 and 3 are adjacent because they're next to each other. Okay, 2 and 4 are adjacent because they're next to each other. 3 and 4 are adjacent Yeah, adjacent, because they're next to each other. They touch at a common side. See how they share that side? Okay, 5 and 6 are adjacent angles because they're right next to each other. And 5 and 7, and 6 and 8, and 7 and 8. Okay, those are all your adjacent angles. Okay, adjacent angles are not equal, but adjacent angles have to add up to 180 degrees, obviously, because if they're adjacent to each other and I add them, you get a straight line, which is 180 degrees. Okay, if you take parallel lines cut by a transversal, okay, you got to have this picture. But if you take the two lines have to be parallel, and the transverse has to cut them at an angle, okay, then adjacent angles will always be supplementary angles because they add up to 180. Vertical angles, I love vertical angles. Vertical angles are opposite each other when two lines intersect. And what's neat about vertical angles is that they're congruent. So if you take angle 1 and angle 4, they're diagonal to each other. That's vertical angles. And I know that whatever the measure of angle 1 is, so is the measure of angle 4, because this has been proven that vertical angles are congruent. So if angle 1 equaled 60 degrees, then angle 4 would have to equal 60 degrees because vertical angles are equal. Okay, you have another pair, 2 and 3. 2 and 3 are vertical angles, and they're congruent. 5 and 8 are vertical angles, they're congruent. And 6 and 7 are vertical angles, and they're congruent. Okay, so adjacent angles are supplementary, vertical angles are equal. Alright, same drawing, two parallel lines cut by a transversal. Corresponding angles are located in corresponding positions with respect to the two parallel lines. And what's neat about corresponding angles is they are also congruent, guaranteed. So if I look at angle 1 that is above this parallel line on the left, I need above and on the left of the second parallel line, which would be 5. They're in the same position with respect to the two parallel lines. So 1 and 5 correspond. They're in the same position but on different parallel lines. Okay, so you'd have another pair at 2 and 6 because this is on top of the parallel on the right and this is top of the parallel, left left and on top of the parallel, left and on top of this parallel. So they're in corresponding positions. Okay, 3 and 7 is below and on the right. Below and on the right makes 3 and 7 corresponding angles, and that makes them congruent. So if angle 3 is 120 degrees, then so is angle 7. Okay, they have to be congruent. This guarantees it. And we have one more pair, which is the 4, which is on the bottom left at right, and 8 is on the bottom right, so they correspond and are congruent. Okay, alternate interior angles. Well, interior is just like it says. Okay, this would be the interior of the parallel lines. Alternate interior means they need to be on opposite sides of the transversal. Okay, and what's neat about alternate interior angles is that they are congruent. So alternate interior, well, it's got to be interior and alternate. So 3 and 6 are alternate interior angles, which means they're equal. So if this is 120, so is this. Okay, and then you have another pair, which is inside. On the right, it is alternate interior to angle 5, that is inside but on the left. Oh my goodness, I don't know my right from my left. Alright, so again, I would know that for angle 4 and angle 5 are equal, just like 3 and 6 are equal, just like 1 and 5 are equal, 2 and 6 are equal, 3 and 7 are equal, 4 and 8 are equal. Okay, and then you have your alternate exterior angles, which is just like it sounds. Your exterior is here and here. And alternate means on opposite sides of the transversal. So 1 and 8 are alternate exterior angles, and they are congruent. And then your other pair is 2 and 7, And we know that they're equal. Whatever they are, they're equal. 1 and 8 are equal. Okay? Same side interior angles is just what it sounds. They've got to be interior and they've got to be on the same side. So 4 and 6. And those angles are supplementary. They're not equal, but if I add them up, I get 180 degrees. And the other same side interiors would be, change colors here, 3 and 5. Okay, again, they're not equal, but if I add them up, I'm going to get 180 degrees. Your same side exterior angles, your same side exterior angles, okay, here's your exteriors, on the same side of the transversal would be 1 and 7, and those are also supplementary, so they're not equal, but if I add them up, I'll get 180. And the other same side exterior would be the 2 and the 8, which are not equal, but they are supplementary, so they will add up to 180 degrees. Okay? Alright, try this one. Hit pause. Come back when you're ready. And hopefully you got T. In the figure below, they're telling you that line AB is parallel to line CD, and line T is their transversal that intersects them. It says, which of the following choices does not list a pair of congruent angles? Well, the first one says 1 and 4. 1 and 4 are vertical angles, which are equal. So that's not it. Okay, 2 and 7. If I look at 2 and I look at 7, those are alternate exterior angles. Alt, exterior, and those are equal, so that can't be my solution. They want to know which is not, what pair is not congruent. So let's see, I have 6 and 3. 6 is here, 3 is here. Those are alternate interior angles, which are equal, so it's not that. So if I look at 3 and 5, 3 and 5 are same side interior angles, which are not equal. They are supplementary. They add up to 180 degrees. So these are the ones that are not congruent. Okay, 2 and 6 are, because they are corresponding angles, and those are actually equal. Okay. Alright, try this one. Hit pause. Come back when you're ready. And hopefully you got G. In the figure below, which pairs of angles are adjacent angles? 2 and 3 are vertical angles, so it's not that. 7 and 8, they are adjacent to each other. They share a common side, so those are adjacent. I'm assuming there's not any more, or they would have said which, there could be more than one answer. And we know in the ACT there's not. Okay, you could check. 4 and 5 are alternate interior. 2 and 7 are alternate exterior. 4 and 6 are same side interior angles, which are supplementary. Alright, so a little bit of practice. It says, what is an angle? An angle is two rays with a common endpoint. It says, draw a model of angle ABC and write the symbol. Well, you make any angle. B has to be here. That's the only rule. Whatever's in the middle has to be the vertex. You could put A here or here, and then C would be in the other place. And the symbol for angle ABC would be that angle measure, angle ABC, or you could just say angle B. 2. What type of angle has a measure of 90 degrees? A right angle. Draw a model of the angle. 90 degrees means the two lines are perpendicular. 3. What type of angle has a measure between 0 and 90? That's cute. So acute angles. Draw a model of that angle. Anything less than 90 degrees would work. Okay, 4, what type of angle has a measure between 90 and 180? That's big. Remember, if acute is small, then big is obtuse, unless it's bigger than 180, and then that's reflex. Okay, so that's obtuse. A model of the angle would be something like this, where from here to here is more than 90 degrees. Okay. 5, what type of angle has a measure between 180 and 360? So now remember, we're going past that straight line. Those are called reflex angles. Okay, and so to draw one of those, there's my first, and it's got it, if there's my 180, it's got to be anything over down here. So I could draw it like that, or over here. Anything below that dotted line would be a reflex angle. Okay, number 6, what type of angle has a measure of exactly 180? That would be a straight angle. Draw a model of the angle. 180 degrees means 180 degrees. Alright. 7, what are complementary angles? It's not necessarily 2, but it's where the sum of the angle measures equal 90 degrees. So draw a model of complementary angles. Well, all you got to do is draw a 90-degree angle and stick a ray somewhere in the middle. This angle and this angle are complementary because they add up to 90 degrees. 8, what are supplementary angles? And that's where the sum of the angle measures equals 180 degrees. Draw a model. Well, 180 degrees is a straight line, so stick a ray anywhere in between there. I don't know, like that. And this angle plus this angle would have to add up to 180 degrees. Number 9, what are congruent angles? Those are equal angles. In other words, their angles have the same measure. 10, the measure of 2 complementary angles and a third angle totals 168. What is the measure of the third angle? Well, you're adding 3 things to get 168. Well, it says 2 of them are 90 degrees, so these two are complementary. So these two put together are 90, plus I don't know equals 168. To get the I don't know, subtract 90, and you get the measure of the third one. Has to be 78 degrees. Okay, 11 says one of 2 supplementary angles measures 36. What is the measure of the other angle? Supplementary means that the 2 I'm adding together equals 180. Well, they gave me 1 is 36. They're asking me to figure out the second one. So there's my equation. To figure out what x is, I'm going to subtract 36, and x equals 144 degrees. Okay, 12 says 2 angles of a triangle are complementary. What is the measure of the third angle? Well, first of all, in a triangle, the angles all have to add up to 180 degrees. And it says 2 of those angles are complementary. So you're adding 3 angles, and that has to equal 180 because there's only 180 degrees in a triangle. Well, they're saying that 2 of these is 90 degrees because 2 of the angles are 90, plus I don't know equals 180. Well, that has to be 90 degrees because 90 plus 90 is 180. Alright? Alright, 13 says, which pairs of angles in the figure above are adjacent? You have 1 and 8. I'm not writing that properly. I should do angle 1, angle 8, angle 2, and angle 7. Guess I'll separate them semicolons. 3 and 6, and what order you go in doesn't matter. Angle 3 and angle 6. 4 and 5, angle 4 and angle 5. Those are your sideways ones. Now you got to do your uppy downy ones, if you will, which would be angles 1 and 2, 8 and 7. Why I wrote 1, I don't know. and 3 and 4, and 6 and 5. Okay, those would all be your adjacent angles. Are these angles complementary, supplementary, or congruent? And look at them. If you added them up, you get a straight line, which means they are supplementary. Okay? 14. Which pairs of angles in the figure above are vertical? Vertical means they're diagonal to each other. Well, there's angle 2 and angle 8. There's angle 1 and angle 7. There's angle 6 and angle 4. And there's angle 3 and angle 5. Okay, are these angles complementary, supplementary, or congruent? According to our rules, vertical angles are equal, and the fancy word for equal is congruent. Alright, 15, which pairs of angles in the figure above are corresponding angles? Corresponding angles are in the same position with respect to the parallel line. So 1 corresponds to 3, because they're both above. And I'm running out of room, so I'm going to write it right here. So angle 1 and angle 3, which means 8 and 6 are corresponding. So I got angles 8 and angle 6. So I did the tops. Now let's do the bottoms. So 2 corresponds to 4, and 7 corresponds to 5. Okay, so there's all of those ones. What else is my corresponding angles? I did 1 and 3, 2 and 4, 8 and 6, 7 and 5. Yeah, those are it. And corresponding angles are congruent. Okay? Yeah, I got them all. Just checking. Alright, 16. Which pairs of angles in the figure above are alternate interior angles? Alternate interior means inside the parallel lines but opposite sides of the transversal. So that would be angle 2 and angle 6. Okay, then my other alternate interior would be angle 7 and angle 3. And we know that alternate interior angles are congruent. 17. Which pairs of angles in the figure above are alternate exterior angles? Well, alternate exterior means outside of the parallel lines, and alternate means opposite sides of the transversal. So that would be angle 1 and angle 5, and then angle 8 and angle 4. And alternate exterior angles are congruent. Alright, 18. Which pair of angles in the figure above are same side interior? Same side interior would be angle 2 and angle 3, or angle 7 and angle 6. Those are not equal, they're not congruent, those are supplementary. Okay, they have to add up to 180. 19, which pairs of angles in the figure above are same side exterior angles? Well, same thing, I'm just working on the outside. So same side on the exterior would be angle 1 and angle 4, and then angle 8 and angle 5. And again, same side exterior are going to be supplementary angles. Okay? Alright, then it's going to ask us, it's going to give us some measures, and we have to figure out what other measures are. These are fun, I think. Okay, it says the measure of angle C is 105. What's the measure of angle B? Well, those are vertical angles, which means they're equal, so the measure of angle B has to be the same, which would be 105 degrees. Okay, 21 says the measure of angle E is 75 degrees. What's G? Well, those are same side. Or no, those are adjacent angles, which means they're supplementary. So 75 plus G has to equal 180. So subtract 75, and I get the measure of angle G is equal to 105 degrees. Alright, on 22, it says if measure of angle A is 65, what is the measure of angle E? Well, A and E are corresponding angles, which means they're equal. So the measure of angle E has to be 65 as well. Okay, 23 says measure of angle D is 70 degrees. What's the measure of angle E? Well, those are alternate interior angles, which means they're congruent. So the measure of angle E has to be 70 degrees also. Alright, and 24 says if the measure of angle G is 110 degrees, what's the measure of angle B? Well, those are alternate exterior, which are equal. So the measure of angle B has to be the same as G, which is 110 degrees. Okay? Alright, 25, it says the measure of angle D is 55 degrees. From there, they want me to get all the rest of these. Well, A is vertical, so that's got to be 55. B is adjacent, that's vertical. This is adjacent, which means that 55 plus B has to equal a straight line, 180. Minus 55 minus 55, I get 125 degrees. Okay, so this is 125. Alright. No, sorry, my bad. A is 55. B is 125, my bad. Get it straight, Tamsin. Alright, so then C, well, that's vertical to B, and B is 125, so C is 125. And E, well, that corresponds to A, and corresponding angles are equal, so if A is 55, so is E. Okay? F, so what's E 55? Let's see, F, what can I say? F corresponds to B. So whatever B is, corresponding angles are equal. So if B is 125, then so is F. They want the measure of angle G. Well, that's vertical to F. So vertical angles are equal. So that's got to be 125. And G, the measure of angle H, well, that's vertical to E. So whatever E is, H is, and that's going to be 55 degrees. Okay. Alright, for the next problem, we need a new graph. It says the measure of angle E plus the measure of angle H equals 120. Well, E and H are vertical, so they have to be equal. So if you cut 120 in half, that's going to make each angle worth 60 degrees. What is the measure of angle F? Well, if this is 60 and F is adjacent, that means that 60 plus F has to equal 180 minus 60, and F has to be 120. Okay, so F is 120. And then they want to know the measure of angle A. Well, that is, corresponds to E. So whatever E is, A is, which would be 60 degrees. Okay? Alright, so you try this one, hit pause, come back when you're ready. And hopefully you got the same side. It says, if two parallel lines are cut by a non-perpendicular transversal, which type of angles are not congruent? Well, same side exterior. Same side exterior are supplementary. Corresponding are equal, alternate interior are equal, vertical are equal, alternate exterior are equal. The only one that's not is, in this group, is the same side, because those would make supplementary angles. Okay, try this one, hit pause, come back when you're ready. Hopefully you got 130. It says in the figure below, AB is parallel to CD, and T is a transversal that intersects both AB and CD. If the measure of angle 3 is 50 degrees, what's the measure of angle 8? Well, let's see. You could go about this a lot of ways. If this is 50, then 3 plus 4 has to equal 180. So 50 plus x has to equal 180. Well, let's just say angle 4. Alright, minus 50 minus 50, so angle 4 has to be 130, which 8 corresponds to, and that makes that 130. You could have done a lot of different things. Alright, there's lots of ways to get there. You just have to use, you want to find something that's either in the same position or vertical to it. Okay, so where you can say, if you find that one, you can say that one's the same thing. Try this one, hit pause, come back when you're ready. Alright, it says in the figure below, the measure of angle 8 is 120. AB and CD are parallel, cut by a transversal T. What is the product? So they're telling me to multiply the measure of angle 7 times the measure of angle 1. Well, if this is 120, and 8 plus 7, angle 8 plus angle 7 has to add up to 180, and I know this is 120, subtract 120, and I get angle 7 has to equal 60. Now I need angle 1. Well, if this is 120, then this is 120, which corresponds to 1, which is 120, not 1200. So angle 1 is 120 degrees. So the product would be 60 times 120, which is 7200 degrees. Okay? Try this one. Come back when you're ready. And why isn't it coming? There you go. Hope we got 120. In the figure below, the measure of angle 6 is 60 degrees. AB is parallel to CD, cut by a transversal T. They want to know the measure of angle 4. Well, if 6 is 60, then 2 is 60 because it corresponds. And then angle 2 plus angle 4 are adjacent, so they have to add up to 180. Well, I know that angle 2 is 60, so if I subtract 60, subtract 60, I get angle 4 equals 120. These are fun. Alright, try this one. Hit pause. Come back when you're ready. Hopefully you got B. It says in the figure below, PQ, or P is parallel to Q, and L is parallel to M. These two are parallel, these two are parallel. It says, which of the following choices is a complete list of all the angles supplementary to angle 13? Alright, well, 13, supplementary to it is 14, because that and that has to equal 180. Anything adjacent to it, so 15, that's going to give you 180. Let's see, what else do we have? Supplementary to angle 13. Angle 11, yeah, if you do same side interior, they're supplementary. Okay, and since 11 is supplementary and 10 is equal to 11, then 10 is supplementary to 13. Okay, angle 7, if you look at the picture this way, okay, 13 and 7, well, what's the relationship there? Well, what can I say about 7? Why is 7? Well, let's look at 2. Well, 13 and 5 would be equivalent. So since 7 is supplementary to 5 and 5 is equal to 13, then 7 is supplementary to 13 as well, because 5 is. Okay, that means 6 is, because it's vertical to 7. Okay, and then since 2 is equivalent to 6, 2 is, and since 3 is equivalent to 7, 3 is. And there you go. And that will do it for angles. And I will see you for day 3.